What up? What up? We're back. HBCU Spotlight is Friday. Got my man Cam Dailey, ATL's finest. What up, Cam?
Man, what's going on, B? Happy to have another show getting ready to get started.
Yeah, March Madness is kicking back off tomorrow, so we get to get a little Friday special. So we're going HBCU Spotlight. We got a really special lineup. We got one college coach who just coached in the tournament and got a win representing HBCU. So excited to have Coach Rob Jones coming on later. But first, I'll let Cam introduce our first guest.
We got my man, Justin Miller, powerful attorney here in the Atlanta area, also played at HBCU, guy I've been known for a long time, and, here to share his story and somebody to show a lot of you people, powerful people can come out of these HBCUs and not just play basketball or be a teacher or anything like that. He's a powerful attorney, man, somebody I highly respect.
Awesome. Without further ado, we're bringing Jay Miller. Justin, how you doing, man?
Man, what's going on? Happy to be here. Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah. So I'll let Cam kick it off, man. I know you guys got a lot of war stories from playing against each other back in the HBCU circuit, so I'll let him kick it off.
Yeah, we do have a lot of stories.
I'm glad he let me come on y'all's show. I'm glad he still lets me come on the show. You know what I mean?
He didn't ban you.
Nah, Justin, a good dude, man. We first met on the the battlefield, but it was a mutual respect because we were both talking noise to each other, and neither one of us were backing down. And me, I like to try and bully people a little bit to see if they back down.
Right.
A couple of his teammates did, but he didn't. And I was like, man, you know what? I can respect that dude right there. And I think he had the same mutual respect because when he was barking, I was barking back at him.
I love it. Justin, I asked you this, Justin.
All game.
What's the scouting report on Cam? You got to give me a quick scouting report.
Man, I'm going to tell you, he was the original Chris Paul. That's what he was, man. Floor general extraordinaire. The man would get you in the place where you're supposed to be. That was the tough thing for us because his team we didn't really think that they were that nice, but he would get them into position where they could score, so it makes everybody better. So yeah, he had some game with him, and he did run his mouth the whole entire game.
So we got a mix between Chris Paul and Gary Payton. It sounds like.
Yeah. And Justin was doing the same thing. Justin was doing the same thing. He was doing the same thing. Talking. But it grew to
I enjoyed
a very
people's skin. That was fun.
Yeah, and it grew to a very good friendship, and also seeing this guy blossom and groom and through the game of basketball, through HBCU, but become a powerful attorney, highly respected, not only in Atlanta but in the country. People come to him for a lot of stuff. So, Justin, we brought you here just to kind of talk about your experience on the HBCU, why you chose the HBCU, and just, tell some of your stories. Don't tell everything, but the floor is yours.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it again. So for me, going to a HBCU was like it wasn't my first choice. And I know a lot of people I've heard had stories like that. It wasn't my first choice, but it ended up being the best choice because in the beginning, all you want to do is you want to go D1 somewhere and you want to go to the league. I think that's every basketball player's dream, right? And I was recruited by, Western Kentucky and Miami. University of Miami was probably the biggest school. And I was going to go there. But then they had a kid from Miami who was going to come play. They told me I was going to sit on the bench for 2 years. I was like, I'm good. And so I ended up at Morehouse just on a whim because my dad knew the coach and they didn't recruit me. And my dad called him and said, hey, he's not going to Miami. He was like, you bring him here, we give him a scholarship. So I immediately went there, and it was the best move I ever made in my entire life as far as, school and things of that nature. So a little background about me at Morehouse. I ended up, I think when I quit, I was like the 12th leading scorer, something like that. I'm not sure. Now I'm down the line a little bit, but, I might even crack the top 10 at the end. I'm not sure. But, that's that always is subject to change when these new players come out. I made all conference, all tournament, and I led the team in scoring for 2 years, rebounding 2 years at 6'5". So, I did my thing while I was there, and I had a great time. The thing that people talk about with HBCUs about not having the resources that predominantly white schools have is absolutely true. We play sometimes on what I call the Chitlin circuit, which was all through South Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee. And we would drive on a bus to some of these places, hours and hours and hours, just to go somewhere and play basketball and then come right back. But those trips and that I think that level of having to deal with not having the things that you didn't have and how to overcome that made me a better person in the end. I actually know it did. For instance, there was a time we went to Miles College, and Cam, you'll remember going to Miles. We went to Miles, and the locker room that they put us in to change was flooded. It had like a foot of water on the ground the entire time. So our coach was like, "Look, man, figure it out." So we're all standing up on a little strip of bench trying to put our clothes on before the game, and of course Miles knew that they put us in a locker room with water on the floor and everything. No one cared. And so we still went out there and beat them by 30 and came home. Another time, I fouled a guy during the game. This was at Lemoyne Owen. Remember Lemoyne Owen? How could you
Boy,
forget Lemoyne? And this
man.
school was in the middle of the hood,
Yes.
right in the middle of the projects. And so, a lot of my teammates had never really been in that situation. They were kind of nervous, being in the projects. But, I was having fun. By the end of the game, I'm high-fiving everybody, even the people on their team. You know what I mean? I would catch a dunk and I would run by, and they were my fan at the end of the game. So, those were good things. One thing that happened, though, when we played there, and we played there a lot during my 4 years at Morehouse, but I fouled this guy really hard. And, I used to foul people. I was like, listen, if I'm going to give him one, I got to give him a real one so they can feel it. So I fouled him really hard. He was on the ground rolling around. He wasn't hurt, but, he was making a big deal out of it. Next thing something hit me in the back of my head. And I turned around. There was a 12-year-old kid like behind me crying. I'm like, you hit my daddy. You hit my daddy. And and they had to come get him off the court, because he's going to fight me because I fouled his daddy. So, that was at Lemoyne Owen. But all of these places, though, I mean, I'll walk around the schools and just learn about the schools and the history of all those schools. And they were great places, you know what I mean? Great places to go to school, great places to learn. I would talk to the players after the game and before the game, and they would all share their experience. And they had, great experiences at these schools. So that was good. And then the best thing, though, to me about an HBCU, and I didn't figure this out until I finished, is after you finish, the networks that you have are insane. It's like being in a fraternity. It's like if you're in a fraternity, then you're in that fraternity. Then you're in the fraternity of the school you went to. Then you're in a fraternity of us people who went to HBCUs. It's like a huge network that you're not gonna get at some other schools. Like I have a friend, he went to ECU, East Carolina, and he played there. And he's like, I didn't even talk to anybody unless they were on his team in school. I know, from Morehouse, I know thousands of people, and this is anywhere I go. I used to live in New York, and I knew, several Morehouse cats from New York and in California in the same place. So it was a wonderful thing. Also, the fraternity of people who played sports at these schools, because we have the same shared stories. Everybody has those stories. And so when you talk to everybody who played, you're talking about the exact same thing, just from, wearing a different jersey. So, that was a great thing for my HBCU experience.
Good. So, tell some of the people about, some of the life for you off the court, especially at a HBCU, as far as like your teachers, the classrooms, going on the yard, the homecomings and stuff like that. Because we're trying to educate people on these HBCU experiences.
Yeah, so it was different. For law school, I went to a PWI, which was St. John's University in New York. And that's where I could really tell the contrast between, HBCU and PWI. So, we would get out of class and there would be events. It'd be like a party, you could just walk down the strip, as we used to call it, and there would be people outside hanging out all hours of the day. And so, we just had to make sure we stayed focused, because, you could stay out there all day and never go to class and never go to practice and just kind of ruin your whole career and your whole time in school. But we were each other's keepers, so we made sure we all got to where we needed to go. But that was a beautiful thing, and that was a fun thing. some things that I feel like made me better, like financial aid, going there and making sure your scholarship was intact and making sure all your money was in. Because sometimes, they wouldn't have it and you had to go and tell, listen, man, they don't have my scholarship. They kicked me out of all my classes, and then you got to go re-register for class and, wait in line. I mean, these things, I feel like they're bad. You think about it, back in the day, and I wish it wasn't like that. But now these things have shown me that there's really nothing that I cannot overcome in life. And that all came from being in the HBCU. The fun part, and this is something that is not at this. I went to St. John's. At St. John's, they don't have this, so they have homecoming, and it's like one day, and there's like 300 people out there, and they're hanging out or whatever. Our homecoming, like 100,000 people. You know what I mean? So, and it's all love. I mean, when I was in school, I would be walking down with a basketball, hoodie on or something, and people would just be handing me, food and different things. And I would just, it was a family experience, even with that many people. And so, that alone, going back every year to homecoming, made it a great thing. And I still go every year. I was sad that we couldn't go last year, because that's one of the highlights of the year, seeing all your friends and all the people that went to school with. I tell people all the time when I talk to them, like my team at Morehouse, from my team, I have 3 lawyers who are on my team. I have 2 doctors who are on my team. I have a guy who was a political strategist, 2 guys who own their business, 1 architect, 1 guy who's like a computer programmer for Google, 1 guy who's a reverend, you know what I mean? Everybody on my team they didn't stop at college. College was not their the biggest thing that they ever did in their life. It was just a stepping stone. And I believe that it should be that way, and a lot of times I know people who played at different schools. I have friends who played at Duke, and I was talking to one of them the other day, and he was like, listen, man, some of them people on his team, that was the biggest thing they ever did, to play at Duke. That's going to be their claim to fame forever. And I just don't think it should be like that. College should not be, when you're 21, 22, you should not have reached the peak of your life. And so I feel like at a HBCU, you're going to get a lot more out of it, because you are in an environment that is set up to help you grow as a person, not just a basketball player or a student.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely agree with everything you're saying. And the funny thing, when you were talking about, the locker rooms and everything, it brought back memories to me, because I remember one year, and you probably remember this too, like Lemoyne Owen put you in the locker room next to theirs, and there'd be holes in the sheetrock. So they'd be sitting there looking at you get dressed, and you watching them. And I know Coach Joe was like, "Hey, we're not even gonna go over the game plan. We'll just go over to the gym and just start laying the ball up, man. Don't even worry about it." So it was funny. And I don't know, Burton don't notice when we've been telling him stuff like this, but like at Lemoyne Owen, it's 2 sides to the gym, and you know if they like you or not by if you get fouled and fall into the crowd and fall down. If somebody helps you up, they like you. If they stand over you looking at you, they're trying to fight you. And I got helped up a couple times.
Yeah.
I guess because the little dude, and he's talking and all sorts of stuff like that, so we're gonna help him up. But with you now, after your Morehouse experience, tell people a little bit.
Hard.
Yeah. That's something a lot of us have had heart, and it's kind of, now the game is kind of trying to be more. I think the kids are trying to be more, let's make a play on YouTube so I can get some stuff, instead of making the right play and playing the game the right way. That's what I kind of miss a little bit, watching the game be played the right way, guys swinging the ball and moving it. And I tell people all the time, Justin, too, it's funny because a lot of our HBCU coaches don't get the respect I think they need, or the respect they deserve, because, they draw up some great sets just like any other coach. I've seen coaches from HBCUs draw up sets that I've seen Duke use, or Krzyzewski might take a page out of their book. Right. They never get that claim because they're at a HBCU, like we're less than, but we're not. I mean, if you go to a SWAC game, a SIAC game, a MEAC game, you're going to see some of the most athletic dudes in your life. Like guys who play 4 years of basketball and then mess around, be a wide receiver in the NFL somewhere, or a track star, or, like an attorney, or just doing anything positive with life. And and I wish they would give us that same claim to fame, and I wish they would give us that same respect. But tell the people a little bit about what you're doing now, because I kind of try to tell them, but I didn't want to let everybody know some of the stuff you have going on because I didn't know if you could talk about it. But let us know.
Yeah. So I've been a lawyer now for 15, 16 years. And so I started off doing kind of criminal law and a little bit of civil law. And about 2010, I just started doing only civil law. And so I was leading and running a law firm with 300 people here in Atlanta. I stopped doing that last year, right before the pandemic started, to partner up with one of my buddies who also went to two HBCUs. He went to Xavier and he went to Howard. And we just happened to get a case after one of the most egregious things that happened in United States history happened on TV during the pandemic, which was to represent the family of George Floyd. And so we have been representing his family since last year in May. We're part of the team that represents his family. There's about 5 lawyers. And so the entire time there's been a pandemic, we've been running around from Atlanta to Minnesota to Houston, trying to represent George Floyd's family and make sure that he gets the justice that he deserves. Recently, we just settled a part of the case, and that is the monetary part of the case. And I'm going to Minnesota tomorrow so that we can make sure that the first cop, the one that was kneeling on his neck, that guy goes to jail. So we'll be up in Minnesota tomorrow. Starting tomorrow. The trial starts Monday, so we'll be in Minnesota tomorrow. We also picked up a case of a guy who got shot by the cops at Wendy's. He got killed. His name was Rashard Brooks, and he was actually fleeing from the police when they shot him in the back. He was 18 feet away. So we represent his family as well, and that's here in Atlanta. So we're just trying to make sure that his family gets justice. And then we're part of the team that represents Ahmaud Arbery in Brunswick, Georgia, who was killed by, some 3 guys who decided it was right to take the law into their own hands and kill him because he was jogging and, looking at a house in South Georgia. So we have had, during this pandemic, a lot of travel, a lot of work, and a lot of tears shed, on behalf of our people. And it's a good thing. It's fine. But, we got a lot more work to do. And hopefully we can make a dent in some of these things that are happening out here, and get this world and get this country back, or not even back, but to the place where it should be. Because right now, as you all and we all can see, it's not there.
Yeah, if you don't mind if I jump in on that, what would you like to see, Justin, and what's some of the stuff from being on the inside of the lines? Do you feel like since George Floyd's tragic murder, do you feel like things have started to get slowly better from your viewpoint? And then what would you also like to see better? And is there anything that we can actually do to help with that? I think all of us want to do our part, but it's kind of like a fine line. But what battles do we fight? Which ones do we not? So from your viewpoint, we're in the athletic space. From your viewpoint, what would you say on that?
To be honest, I don't think we have gotten that much better since George Floyd. We just haven't had another George Floyd to happen, thankfully, which we don't want to happen. But with these tragedies, it's like every single time something happens, the world kind of looks at it and all eyes are on it and everybody coalesces around it. And then, people go on about their way and continue with their day and their job.
Yep.
We're now coming out of the pandemic a little bit. And so people are not as concerned and don't have, before last year, people were focused. They had to sit in front of the TV. They couldn't do anything else.
Yep.
And now there's so much other stuff to do. I feel like people are not as concerned with it as they were last year. And what I tell people is we have to get back to that focus. That is the reason why some of the changes that have happened are happening. For instance, in New York, they just passed a law which basically banned qualified immunity for police officers. And I think they did that yesterday or the day before. And what qualified immunity is, it just means that if a police officer does something to somebody, you can't sue them if they have qualified immunity. So if a police officer shoots you in the back, you can't sue them. If a police officer beats you up, you can't sue them. Police officer kills your loved one, you can't sue them. And so that is a law in a lot of the states. I mean, that there's a level in Georgia as well. And so New York just passed a law where they ban qualified immunity, so you can sue police officers when they do something wrong, right? And so things like that show me that there are different things that are moving in the right direction, but that needs to be banned across the country, not just in New York. Because police officers and the bad police officers, because not all police officers are bad, but the bad ones need to be able to get sued. Those departments, police departments, need to get sued. That will help them train the officers better, pick the officers better, and make sure that they're monitoring the officers better so this kind of stuff doesn't happen. You asked about what do I think needs to happen. I mean, going forward, I think we need to have a database so that these officers, once they do something bad in Georgia, they can't move to Alabama and then go to another police department and do the same thing. We see that a lot. There needs to be more community involvement with police. If you remember, if you watch like any old show, Andy Griffith show, any of those old shows like my dad used to watch, everybody knew the police officers in their neighborhood. They would talk to them, their friends, the police officer would check on them. That's not the case anymore. And so you will drop a guy from a city or a town that he doesn't know any black people in the middle of the hood in Atlanta and say, hey, police these people. But he doesn't understand that the guy that's, over here at the gas station every day who's asking for money or who might say something to him is not a threat, because he doesn't know. He's never met anybody like that. So in his mind, he just thinks this is a threatening person, and that's how bad things happen. So we have to make sure that the police are more in sync with the communities that they police, because that will stop a lot of that madness from happening. And then the last thing is, when you hit them in the pockets, right? If you get a big settlements and verdicts against the police and the cities that do these things, and then you arrest and put in jail the police who do the bad stuff, then that will create, a system where that's not allowed, and people on the inside of that system don't want it to happen, and that's when real change is going to occur.
Some people will call that, for sure. As coaches, we call that accountability, right?
1000%.
Actually holding people accountable the way they should be. I'm not trying to be funny. It's just that's what we talk about as coaches all the time. But you find that sometimes in these systems, there's not that same accountability. I know we got to let you run here soon. I'll let Cam close it out.
Hey, and you know what's hate to cut it off and everything, but before that, but what's funny, Justin, is that I talked to another state trooper, highly qualified guy in Illinois, and he was saying some of the same stuff you said. And he also said one of the things that we could do to help out a little bit more is a lot of athletes will make good police officers or good police chiefs and stuff like that, because they have learned
100%
how to communicate with others within a team, people from all sorts of different backgrounds. And like you said, you can't take a dude from Iowa who's been in the cornfields and put him in zone 5 in Atlanta from the 12 to 6 shift. Because he wants to go home too. So, any kind of threat, the one thing he's doing is grabbing his gun, and that's when the stuff happens. So I totally get it. Last thing for you though, Justin, if you could talk to anybody, any kid, what would you tell them to go to HBCU? What are some of the advice you would talk to them about?
Well, first, it depends on, are we talking about a really good kid or regular kid or like an average? What are we talking about?
I mean, do all three. Do all three. We talking about a good kid, a top 50 kid. We talking about just a regular kid who wants to go to school. Yeah. And we talking about the mid-major athlete.
Okay, so we'll start with just a kid that's decent in basketball, and he might have some offers every, different places, some low-end D1s. That kid, I would say, HBCU is the number one place you need to go, and the reason is because you're going to get the same when you get out, right? Just like me, if you want to play professional ball, you're going to have to go and grind for it. You're going to have to go overseas. You're going to have to go to play in a CBA. You're going to have to go to little small leagues and see if you can grind it out and get where you want to go. And so that process is going to be the same whether you go to a HBCU or whether you go to, a smaller PWI. And so for that kid, the reason why I say go to an HBCU is because the network, once you get out, is going to be much better. So let's just say you go to, and this is a great school. I love the school, but let's just say you go to Georgia State, right? And Georgia State is a great school, and it's actually getting better and better every year. But if you go to Georgia State and then you get out, and you go to, let's say, Clark Atlanta, and then you get out, and you're the same level of basketball, you're the same player, then you're gonna have to do the same level of work, grinding to get to some kind of professional career. But the difference is when you finish playing basketball, you will have a degree from Clark Atlanta that is going to be like that fraternity, that sorority, that group of people that I discussed earlier, and that will help you in your life for 50 years. Whereas you go to Georgia State, and that they got a good network. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think for a Black person in America that network is as good as, say, a Tuskegee or a Howard or a Morehouse or a Clark or a Spelman. For the kid who is, a monster, a beast, and this kid might stay in school 1 year at North Carolina and then go into the draft. I am of the mind frame at this point in time that it doesn't really matter where that kid goes to school, because people are going to see him. People know, they see these kids from, 10 years old at this point in time. So if you're the number 1 10, just take LeBron James, for example. If LeBron had came out and decided he was going to go to Howard for 1 year, LeBron still would have been LeBron. He still would have been the number 1 draft pick. Nothing would have changed for LeBron's life. Everything would have changed for Howard. And so I think that those kids should start, and it's on the parents too, but those are the kids that should start going to the HBCUs, because it's going to help not only the school, but it's also going to help everybody who goes to the school. And we're all in the same. It doesn't matter how much money you have or you don't have. And this is what I tell people all the time about George Floyd. Somebody asked me the other day in the interview, why do you, how do you feel about George Floyd's case and blah, blah, blah. I said, I feel like a Black man who that could happen to too. So, that makes me understand it in a different way that you probably don't understand it. This is when I was talking to a white anchor from CNN. And so that's how I feel. And so we're all in this together. Millions of dollars or $1, no dollars, we're all in this together. And so I think that those kids, like if my son, I have a son, he's 10, if he ends up being great and he's that good, LeBron level good, KD level good, these kids level good, then I'll probably send him to Morehouse. It's not going to matter for if he goes to North Carolina or Duke. They've had that before. They've seen that. They get that every day. But Morehouse doesn't have that. Clark, Tuskegee, these schools don't have that. And then the network that my son would build is still going to be that same great network for him when he finishes. Because if you think about it, like LeBron's whole crew, like all those guys were with LeBron, and that is a rare thing. You don't know any other crews like that in the NBA, right? But at Morehouse, I know crews like that who do different stuff. I know crews who open businesses, they invest together. I know 4 doctors who started a doctor's office and some dentists who did the same thing. I know lawyers who have clicked up together and started law firms and things of that nature. So imagine if LeBron had went to a place like that and had clicked up with guys. You could do that with any player. And I think that that's great. So, I get why people go to those big schools. I would have went back in the day too if I got recruited by Duke or whatever, but I'm glad I didn't, because where I went and what happened and my path has been the greatest path to me. And I tell people that all the time.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, that was big time. I got one to end you with. So what about the student? What about the non-basketball player? What would you say about, because obviously for you, different than maybe a lot of people that play basketball, HBCU or not, there's not a lot of college basketball players that end up being attorneys, right? And there's not a lot of basketball players that play in college that are getting the kind of cases that you're getting. There's not a bigger George Floyd and Arbery. Those are 2 of the biggest names as far as things that happened during the pandemic, and you would want to have the best representation possible. So that's like Hall of Fame status as far as being an attorney. So what would you say academically for just a student who may want to go to an HBCU or maybe considering an HBCU but doesn't know you can actually do the things that you're doing now?
I always fall back on that network, man. I think that that's the best thing that HBCUs have going for them is that network. And this is every single HBCU. The network is powerful, and you don't understand just how powerful a network is until you get out of school. I didn't even know it mattered. Like, I didn't understand. My dad used to try to explain to me what Morehouse was when I was at Morehouse. You know, he was
Right.
like, do you understand this is that and that and that? I was like, man, I just play ball. I don't care about all that.
Right.
When I finished Morehouse and then I got around and I went around the country and I realized, you know, this is to some people feel this way about it and this way about it. And I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. You know what I mean? And so,
Right.
and maybe that was just me, but I also heard that same thing about several HBCUs and just different areas and different people. And so for a student, if you don't play any sports, I think it means even more. You know what I mean? Because you need that network. You're going to need all of the extra tools at your disposal to move forward in your life. And you're going to need people who can help you and guide you and tell you where to go and how to get to where they are and things of that nature. Just think about it this way, and this is how I think about it. When I got out of school and I didn't know what I wanted to do besides playing basketball. And so if you were playing basketball, I had too many people to call from Morehouse to tell me how to get into the league. You know what I mean? But it's like now that I'm a lawyer, they call me all the time. They send me emails and they say, hey, man, listen, I went to Morehouse. I went to Howard. I went to Clark. I went to Tuskegee. I went to FAM. Somebody hit me from FAM the other day and I got them a job at one of my friends' law firms. And they just say, hey, listen, I want to do what you're doing. How do I do it? And the only reason that I even take the time to break it down is because I know where they are from. I know what struggle they went to. We share the same struggle. And if I can help them, you know what I mean? I'm going to try. And so that's why I say the HBCU thing is powerful, because you have those people who are willing to help you and try. And they understand your struggle and they want you to succeed. And especially when you get out of school, you know, that's like one of the most powerful tools you can have at your disposal.
Yeah, big time stuff, man. I feel like I need to give a round of applause real quick. Appreciate you taking the time. I'll let Cam close this out, man. Thanks so much, Justin.
Yeah, appreciate
No
you, Jay,
problem.
man. It was great to have you on, man. And you shared a big light to it, man. And much success to you in the future.
Man, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. And if y'all want me to come back, man, y'all let me know.
Definitely.
Appreciate it, Jay. Definitely will.
All right, man.
All right, brother. Later.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. Just great to get another perspective from not just the athletic side, even though he did play athletics, and the things he's doing now. I mean, you can't get more powerful as far as those kind of cases and that kind of impact that can, you know, the things he's doing, essentially, those are precedented cases that set a precedent for the future, you know, as far as how we do things going forward, as far as, you know, the police system and just some of the injustice that we're facing from police in particular. So love that you set us up with that. That was big time, Cam. I'll let you introduce our next guest too, who's another champion, conference champion, won an NCAA tournament game. He may not even remember me, but I took an L to him when I was in college coaching. We were at UTEP. He came down to El Paso in the invitational that we had up there and snuck one out of there, man. So very good coach. I'm looking forward to this interview and just a great job he's done at Norfolk State to put them on the map. And again, got a tournament win just a week ago.
Yeah, sure did, man. I'm telling you, this guy, you know, Burton already said a lot about him, Coach Jones, but man, a guy I've been sitting here watching lately. Just got to know him a little bit through the pandemic when he came on my show and talked, and followed him in his career, and then also watching some of the stuff. And he's a great basketball mind, but a great dude. As soon as I saw him win that first game, man, I was like, wow, really proud of him. Like it, text him like, yo, dude, I'm happy for you. And know he probably got like 1 million texts from everybody in the world, but great dude, man. Let's bring him on and let him get to talking.
Let's do it. Robert Jones, Norfolk State head coach. Coach Jones, how you doing?
Hey, what's up, man? What's going on?
Not too much. Congratulations, man. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Anytime Cam hit me, I always say yes. I don't know why, but
yeah. You don't even know what you're setting yourself up for, Coach. But whatever you need, Cam, whatever you need.
Hey, you never know. You never know when he may be training just the right player that may be, you know, playing for you. You got to say yes to those guys.
Yeah, no, you always got, you know, he's a good dude, so you know, it's cool.
Hey, so
I got to say this real quick before I let Cam get going. I don't know if you remember me, Coach. I was on UTEP staff a few years ago when y'all came through in the invitational and stole that dub, man. That was a good win.
I don't think we stole anything. We went down there, earned it. We don't steal. We don't steal anything.
The only reason why I say stole it because you were at the home. Anytime you're on the road and you take one, that's the terminology. So I don't mean it.
You were with Terry or you were with
Yep.
Oh, okay. Now I look at you now. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah. We had got one from Floyd before too. That's why I didn't know why UTEP kept scheduling us.
No respect, coach. You had to show them. That's what I'm saying. You went and earned it. And our guys are really they really paid for that one because coach was not happy. But I love the fact that, you know, on my end, I love the fact that you went in there expecting to win, and your guys went in there expecting to win from the jump. And it was one of those games where, you know, I think it happens so often in HBCU where people don't necessarily respect the name that's coming in. It's like, okay, we're gonna play this team. We should win. You know what I mean? And I think that was a little bit of what was permeating. I'm not saying from the staff because I think coaches always do their best to try to prepare, but you know, you prepare differently sometimes when you think you're gonna win versus when you think you may not win. You think you really got to do everything right to win. And so I give you guys so much credit. And I just love the way your guys, the culture of your team, I thought, was on display in that game. The way that they played with not only a chip on their shoulder, but a swagger and a toughness and a togetherness. They weren't going to let you lose that game. So I was really impressed with that part more than anything. You know what I mean? So when I say shoulder, I mean out of respect.
I know. I'm just messing with you. I appreciate that, man. And, you know, that game, those guys really came even more focused because, one, they felt like a chip on their shoulder that we were playing a home team. Because we know how it is. Like, whoever plays the home team is supposed to win. I mean, the home team of the tournament.
Exactly. That you're hosting the tournament. Yeah.
So they already had a chip on their shoulder. And then, honestly, we were without a starter in our sixth man because I had suspended them. So everybody else wanted to rise to the occasion to try to, like, show that what they could do against UTEP being down a starter and a six man. So it was a good game. I know your boss was mad at, he was mad at during the game, man. It's like, yo, come on, man.
He was heated, to say the least.
He was heated.
But that's what you do when you go in and you win a game that people aren't expecting you to win.
Yeah.
And I think there's a perception, even on the coaching side sometimes, if we want to just get it out there, that when you lose to a HBCU, it's like, yo, how'd you let that happen? You know what I mean? That's how coaches almost look at it. But I think you've gotten your program to a point now where people don't get surprised anymore. They're like, there's Norfolk State doing what they do again. So congratulations to you on the tournament win and all the success and winning the league again.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Hey, so Coach, we're gonna start, man, because I'm like Burton. You know, a lot of the HBCU coaches get disrespected. So we're gonna start on a little funny note on this one, though.
All right.
I saw them rank you in the top 50 as a player, Coach. Let's talk a little bit about that, man. How they had you what they had you like 47, 46 as a player?
41. I don't know how they had me 41, man. I had some pretty good numbers, man. I was like, what's going on? But it's all good, though. At least I was at 68. I think Will Wade was 68. 68 was, you know what I mean? So it was like, I wasn't 68, at all. But I still thought I should have been top 25, man. They had some people that averaged like 0.9 points a game at North Carolina. I was like, yo, okay, so what? You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, they had me at 41. I forgot who I was behind. I think it might have been behind Lon Kruger, maybe. I don't know who it was, but I was 41. Yeah. So I wasn't 68, but I wasn't top 25 either, though.
Well, me and Burton are gonna try and set everybody up for one day at my gym there, man. You can just play everybody one-on-one and scrub them up and show them why you number one.
And then we redo the rankings.
Some of it ain't gonna be fair. Some of those guys 69 years old, man.
Hey, man. Hey, listen, Coach. I told people when I played, man, if my grandmother came out there in a wheelchair, I'm going at her.
That's right. So it's all good.
Coach, season, if you don't mind, man. Obviously, you guys won the tournament, getting that tournament win, getting to make it to the tournament, coaching in the pandemic. I mean, it's all kind of stuff I'm sure you could cover, but to tell us a little bit about behind the scenes of this year's special group, if you don't mind.
This year's group was, a group that I would say probably was one of the most together teams that we had. It seemed like everybody liked each other a lot. The coaches, actually liked all the players too, which, sometimes that doesn't happen either. But it was a good group, and they really played like brothers. They really pulled for each other. And I think the pandemic, honestly, probably brought us closer together because in order to stay safe, we had to stay around each other probably more than even in past years. We told the guys that we were getting tested 3 times a week. We don't know if your family and friends are getting tested 3 times a week. So, hang around each other as much as possible to stay safe. And we didn't have one shutdown during the whole season. We had a preseason shutdown, and we didn't have not one during the whole season. So that was great that we were able to develop some kind of continuity that a lot of teams across the country didn't have. So it was great. And we had some guys who really stepped up their leadership skills, and of course we had a couple guys who could play. So that always helps too, because without those Jimmies and Joes, those X's and O's don't mean nothing, man.
Yeah, definitely. Talk a little bit about the win in the NCAA tournament. I know I sat and watched the whole game. I ain't turned it because I was heavily rooting for you guys. And I think people who know you and know your program knew you were probably going to win that game, but I think a lot of people on the outside didn't. So I know, you've probably gotten even more respect that you should have already had. But just talk about that game from beginning to end, and then afterwards how it was for you, especially during the interview process. Like, how was some of those people interviewing you, like talking to you and stuff like that?
I mean, the game, when we first got Appalachian State, it's funny. I mean, the thing was we actually didn't, and I said we would look at past Appalachian State, but all we saw was Gonzaga next, to be honest with you. And we were like, we shouldn't even be on this side of the bracket, because we had a better resume than Texas Southern and Mount St. Mary's, and even Hartford, for that example, for example. And for some reason, you put us, with a win, going against Gonzaga. So we were a little confused about that. But the Appalachian State game, I mean, we wanted to come out with great energy and really, like you said, show what we had, and that's exactly what we did, because we heard so much about Appalachian State's defense, and we heard about how great they are, and all these interviews kept talking about Appalachian State defense, and they this and that. And we were like, damn, we're like ranked like top 25 in the country in defense. So you just going to skip that point, So what we did was, in the first half, we went out there and showed them that we were top 25 in defense. I mean, we held them to 19% shooting, in the first half. And, we were up 16. Then I think the start of the second half, we ended up getting 18 or something like that or whatever. And credit to Appalachian State, they made a run. They started making some shots, some tough shots that they weren't making. And then we started missing some shots. And, it came down to the wire, of course, but we got the defensive stops that we needed down the stretch. We got like 5 in a row, and we scored on those possessions to take over the game and to win the game. And we actually ended up holding them to 29% shooting that game. So our defense still, held up. But it was just like a whirlwind. The whole thing was a whirlwind, man. To be honest with you, it's like we played in the MEAC tournament. We won the championship game on Saturday. It was like Saturday at 1 o'clock was the championship game. That's over like 3 o'clock. We do the net cutting, we do the pictures, stuff like that. So now you get to about the 3:45 range. Then the guys go back to the locker room, and it's like, they want to throw the water and stuff like that. But it's like, okay, everyone has to stop throwing water because we have to go COVID test, because our flight leaves at 7:15. And this is like 4 o'clock right now. And none of us really knew the flight was leaving at 7:15 that night. So, you got to run home. You got to go get underwear. You got to go get stuff like that. It was like crazy. So we fly at 7:15. We get to Indianapolis, 9:40, 9:50, something like that. We go to the hotel, and then we're under quarantine for the next 2 tests. We took a test when we got there, and then the next day we took another test, and we didn't get out of quarantine until 10 o'clock the next night, which they allowed us to go in the gym and get, some shots up to just try to break the monotony of really being locked into your room. I mean, they had security on our floor to make sure that you didn't leave your room. It was like that, and then we're preparing for Appalachian State from Tuesday, Wednesday. The game was Thursday, but we're preparing Tuesday, Wednesday, and we play Thursday. We win, get an NCAA tournament win. But then 48 hours later, you got to play the beast, Gonzaga. So, and then you play Gonzaga. We lose to Gonzaga. We didn't feel like we had our best showing, but we knew we had to be perfect probably anyway to beat them. But we still didn't feel like we had our best showing anyway. So it's a little disappointment. But they fly you out the next day, and now you're back home, and it's like, some people waiting for you, a little celebration and things like that. But all that just happened so quickly that you didn't get a chance to even sit down and realize what the hell just happened, and it's like now until like maybe like Wednesday of this week, Thursday of this week, you start to see like, oh man, we actually did something special. We got an NCAA tournament win. We got, two financial units for the school. So the school is happy. I mean, you know, the conference is happy. Everybody is happy. And we, you know, just get caught up in the moment. But the other part of that question about interviewers after the game, I mean, it seemed like a lot of people were shocked. And we didn't understand, like, what we so shocked at? You know, like, I mean, we were pretty good this year. You know, we had some good wins. I mean, Appalachian State, no take nothing away from them, but they were 7-8 in conference and just got hot, you know, towards the end. And that's what March Madness is about. So we understand that. But it wasn't like we played even the best team in the Sun Belt Conference. So I think that a lot of people don't realize that, like, okay, the top teams in the MEAC can go and compete against, you know, the middle of the pack of any conference, just about, you know what I'm saying? Like from on up. So it's like they think, like, you know, okay, if you're 7th in the Sun Belt, you can't, you know, you like go to beat the top team in the MEAC. And we're like, you're crazy if you think that. You know, a lot of people have what can I say? Perception is not reality. Let's just say that, you know. And I know, like Coach Burton said, you know, he coached against us. I mean, we had pretty good players, and like I said, and I thought UTEP had pretty good players that year, but we were without a starter and a 6-man, and we still at one point on the game when his coach Terry got all real, you know, he got, you know, his boxes in a bunch, that he was like that, you know, we were up 20 at one point in that game, and you know, it was just like, you know, when we stepped on the floor, yes, if you take off the jerseys, I mean, if you take off the Appalachian State or the UTEP jersey or the James Madison jersey or whatever, you don't know what team is what team, because we try to recruit, you know, those kind of quality players.
Right.
That's yeah. So that's what I wanted to get to too. Talking a little bit about that, because a lot of people, during the pandemic and everything, HBCU is seeing all this love and everybody want to do this and talking about it. I think it's kind of died down now.
Which I knew it would, be honest with you. I mean, you know, I've said that before. I might have said it on your show. I don't know you know, if I did or not, but it's like, you know, it's like, unfortunately, us as Black people are like, we're into fads and trends, you know, and it's like whatever the latest fad or trend, we get sucked into. And, you know, when a kid, you know, a few kids said, okay, we don't go HBCU, then a few more kids say it, you know, and then, you know, of course, McCord Maker actually did it, you know, and then, you know, I mean, I know they didn't play this year or whatever, but, you know, it's like, it's a fad, man, you know, and the thing that I tell people that I knew it was going to happen, because we as Black people in general are like a forgetting culture, almost a forgetting and forgiving culture. So like when everything was at the height with George Floyd, you know, everybody is like, oh, you know, we got to go pro-black, HBCU and stuff like that. And, you know, everything's just pro-black. But then, like, okay, once Trump is out of office, once, you know, George Floyd, you know, settlement happened, once a couple other things happened, now people are like, oh, things are back to normal, you know, and now, like, that whole thing is going away. And it's unfortunate because there's, you know, a lot of good basketball players and coaches at HBCU level. Yeah. And it's a shame that more kids don't try to explore that option, because you can live your dream, you know, anywhere, honestly. I mean, right. If you could be a kid that's playing in Lithuania and get seen by the NBA, you think you can't get seen if you play at Norfolk State, if you're really good enough to be in the NBA? I mean, let's be real with each other. You know, I mean, these kids are getting seen over in Czechoslovakia and stuff like that. You think that if you play in Virginia, they're not going to see you in Virginia, you know, but
right.
The perception is that, like, you know, it's just a crazy perception. So I'm not shocked that, you know, I know one kid recently, a couple of days ago, said, you know, HBCUs holler at me or whatever. And of course that went crazy. You know, people, you know, started offering them and stuff like that. And, you know, he'll probably go to NC State or something. Like, it was like, you know, like, okay, you know, that's why we just got to keep recruiting guys who like want to be here. You know, and the thing that we try to sell more than just being an HBCU is trying to sell being a solid mid-major basketball program. Yeah, and definitely. We're going to carry ourselves that way. We're going to do everything that we can to be like anybody else. You know, I tell people all the time, if you know, UTEP is getting 10 pairs of sneakers, I'm going to try to make sure Norfolk State gets 10 pairs of sneakers. You know, and so, you know, so the kids will never feel less than. Yeah, we might not have practice facilities and things like that, but at the same time, some of the trivial stuff that sometimes kids feel less than, you know, because these kids are like very materialistic and things like that. We're going to try to make sure that at the bare minimum, you're going to get all of that stuff, you know, and we've been, you know, pretty good in that regard. And we've been able to get some pretty good players.
Yeah, I got one real quick because I actually so we had 6 players I think sitting out that season that we played you, Coach, and one of the players that was sitting out just got awarded Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year in your league, Anthony Tark.
Yeah.
So I recruited Anthony from NJIT, and talking to him this year and getting a chance to hear about his experience, he would have probably never thought he could have had that experience. But since he went to a couple of the stops, he knew, like, okay, this time I'm going to make this decision based on what I know.
Yeah.
So I guess my question to you would be, it's easier for a guy who's maybe been here and been there and realizes, like, you know what, I'm going to go and make this place great, because he kind of had that mentality, like, I'm going to go make my greatness mark at an HBCU and help put that on the map more instead of just going to a PWI. So my question to you is, what would you say to a recruit, or what would you want people to know about that experience that maybe they don't see that in the mainstream?
Well, the HBCU experience is unlike any other experience I think that you're going to go through. You know, of course, this year the experience for college basketball was bad in general because of, you know, no fans, no anything. But the bands at the HBCU are totally different than the bands at PWIs. You know, the cheerleaders, the dancers are totally different than the cheerleaders and dancers at PWI. Just honestly, the crowd interaction, like there's trash talk wherever you go. You know, whether you play it at PWI or whatever. Even when we played UTEP, it was some guy that was heckling the crap out of me behind me. You know, but it's a different type of heckling at HBCU. You know, so the whole experience is different. And of course, like, you know, just a social life. If you're a student, you know, the homecoming and things like that is like usually most HBCU homecomings are like out of this world. So some PWI homecomings aren't like that. So it's going to be a totally different social atmosphere. But I think that the good HBCUs athletically are going to provide you the same things that a lot of the PWIs are going to provide you with. And that's what I think that a lot of people don't understand.
That's real. Talk about just in your league, some of the teams you played and some of the coaches, and, you know, just your experience. Not only that, but also how hard it is for you to get games outside of your league, especially in your state.
I mean, well, in the league, you know, some of the top programs, you know, like Morgan State, I think Kevin Brodus does a great job over there. In year 2, he's done a tremendous job. You know, he got them to the championship game this year that we had to, you know, play them in the championship game. He did a great job recruiting. I mean, I don't know where he's getting some of these guys from, but he's done a great job recruiting those guys. Of course, North Carolina Central, you know, which was until this year was the class of the league and doing a lot of things. And Coach Lavelle Moden is a heck of a coach, man. You know, I know, you know, he does a lot of other things, but, you know, he's at the end of the day, he's a very good basketball coach. So, you know, it's always tough to play against them. And, you know, you got other teams that are, honestly, some teams that are leaving the league. You know, FAMU and North Carolina A&T are both great programs, and those guys do a great job over there as well. What was the second part of the question, Cam? I know you asked me.
Oh, how's hard it is for you to get games outside of your league? Because I know a lot of teams don't want to play you, especially after this win you just got in the tournament. More teams are going to be running from you. Yeah,
it's going to be tough to get games. We're trying now to get a head start on it, but you know, to get games even in the state of Virginia until this year, you know, you can look at some of those games that we played in Virginia, and like if you read the game notes, it says like first meeting, you know, ever, or first time since, you know, 19 whatever, you know, and stuff like that. And it's a lot of teams was forced to play us this year because of the pandemic, you know, because a lot of teams wasn't trying to travel, and a lot of ADs weren't allowing their teams to travel, so everybody had to kind of do a regional type schedule. And I'm not quite sure if it would be like that next year. You know, it might be, you know, a hybrid type thing. So we played James Madison and George Mason and Radford, and I mean, we always kind of play Hampton, but Old Dominion, you know, all those teams like that, and we beat all of them except for Old Dominion. I'm not quite sure they're going to call us to play again, probably for another 25 years or something, except for Hampton. I mean, Hampton, we already got the date already set for next year, you know, and stuff like that. But you know, you look at, we beat James Madison. They won the regular season in the CAA. You know, we beat Radford. They like perennial contenders in the Big South. They got to the semifinals this year, I believe.
Yeah.
You know, Hampton is doing well in the Big South. We beat them. George Mason is in the A10. We beat them. So people are not really knocking down our door to play. You know, we'll play whoever we can, you know, but it gets harder and harder, honestly. It's like almost you become a victim of your success, and now you end up playing like a Power 5 schedule when you're not like a Power 5 team, you know. So
yeah,
that's what happens usually.
So I know you mentioned fam and everything, and I know you probably saw the deal. What are your thoughts with, you know, LeBron with his deal with fam, and then also anybody talking to you guys, or, you know, after this? I know you're Nike already, but
Yeah.
you know, I think it's good. I know Penny was on 2 weeks ago and was talking about like the Chris Pauls or the Russell Westbrooks, all those guys like that. Like, hey, sponsor one of these HBCUs. Put some money in our pockets.
I mean, I think that they should, honestly. You know, I know Chris Paul did a great job of highlighting HBCUs. I know he's behind that Why Not Us thing with, you know, Central, and he did a great job of, you know, the sneaker stuff and the bubble and the apparel. But, you know, I think that, you know, maybe Chris Paul or Russell Westbrook could get fully behind HBCU basketball program, like, you know, fully outfit them with whatever Jordans, you know, lots or whatever the Chris Pauls or they're called, you know, and do it like that. To my knowledge, no one has approached us yet. But, you know, what's funny, Cam, is that, like, because we're not like the name brand HBCU, you know, that people know, like the FAMUs, the Howards, you know, the stuff like that. I think we get overlooked sometimes. But yet we have probably the better basketball program, you know, out of those, you know, those schools. So, and it's not, and honestly, it's probably not probably, it probably definitely is, but because we're not like you know, we're Norfolk State, like sometimes that's not sexy enough to get a TV deal or something like that. You know, when we put together, like I said, one of the better brands of mid-major basketball, HBCU basketball, whatever you want to call, in the entire country, honestly.
Got you. Talk about I know you talk about the people interviewing you, talking about like the disrespect, not disrespect, but just the non-knowledge. You on the road talking with other coaches, especially some, you know, like your coaches, you, your staff in these AAU tournaments, or just sitting around talking to coaches. Talk about how, you know, they kind of look at you different, or thinking that, you know, because you're at Norfolk State and you may not know this, or you may not understand this terminology and stuff like that. But, you know, me on the outside looking in at you, you're a hell of a coach, and you do great stuff when I see everything you run. And I've been, you know, researching more and watching some of your game films, and you do some great stuff with your team. So just talk about that.
I mean, I think when you finally get to the national tournament, whether NCAA, NIT, you know, something that's big, that's on TV, people get a chance to see you more. Because, like, even like after that game, you know, I read some of the articles when I taking my mind over watching Gonzaga play, trying to figure that out, right? Just try to like just catch up with some stuff. A lot of people talk about our defense, you know, and switching defenses and things like that. And you know, I know Avery Johnson, you know, said about how we have a whole bunch of defenses, and I guess he probably would know well, I guess, right, from the Alabama game. But at the same time, you know, it's like you get a chance to show your brand a little bit more. And I really don't think that, honestly, I don't think that a lot of coaches, peers, I think a lot of peers have respect for what we do, you know, and myself and my whole staff and my players and everything like that. But yet they'll still use it against you in recruiting, though. Like, they really know what it is, but because they know that it's still a stigma about going to a HBCU, they're going to say, well, why you want to go to Norfolk State as a HBCU, you know? But yet they know that Coach Jones is a good coach, you know, and then the rest of the staff is a good coach. Like, they know that. I mean, you know, we've played a lot of guys and beat a lot of guys, you know, so people know, but they're still going to use it against you until you have to play them. And then now when you play them, it's like they can't, you know, you can't use it again. You gotta show me something now. And it's like that, man, Cam, and it's disappointing a little bit, but I think the overall respect from the peers. I mean, a lot of peers, you know, text me congratulations, and they were so happy. Even after the MEAC tournament, people were happy. Even before the Appalachian State win and stuff like that. So it's definitely the respect factor. I think the respect is definitely there among the peers. It's just, like I said, they're going to use whatever they got to use recruiting wise, and it's cool.
Yeah, because you said something real powerful. My bad, B. You were like, hey, if I hear a team getting 10 shoes, I'm gonna try and get 10 shoes for my guys too. I think I think a lot of times that's used against our kids at HBCU. Like, hey, you're not getting what we get. And like, my thing is, who cares how many pair of shoes you get or how many uniforms you have or how many book bags you have? You can only wear one pair of shoes on the court when it's time to play. Like, so let's lace up and just go play. Like, earn your respect instead of just asking for stuff.
No, without question. But it's like in this day and age, these kids, they care about that stuff, man. You know, and it is sad because they do care about it. So we just try to give them one less reason to not come to Norfolk State. You know what I'm saying? So like once we check that box, okay, all right, so what's next? You know, all right, so you want to do that? Okay, well, we checked that box too. So what's next? So tell me what else, you know, and then okay, we'll check that box too. So we want to almost put them at a point that they have no other boxes to check, you know, so they're like, well, we're gonna come, you know, to Norfolk State because, you know, like I said, man, we don't want to be like I know I was on another Zoom one time, you know, during the summer, and it was like grassroots coaches and it was some powerful grassroots coaches on there. And they said, yo, you know, of course, you know, the whole we want to help HBCUs thing and, you know, all that stuff like that. And one of them said, like, hey, you know, we could get together. You know, we're powerful at night. You know, you guys need sneakers. I'm like, sneakers? I was like, we need players, man. Like, we get enough sneakers. You know, like, we need, like, forget about the sneakers and T-shirts, man. Like, you know, like, I got a whole side of my closet full of Norfolk State stuff. That's the last thing I need is one more T-shirt, you know, and one more pair of sneakers. You know, we need that 6'9" wing that you got over there, you know, to make us like go to the level of playing. So it was like, but that's the thing that people think, that they think that we eat at McDonald's. I don't even like McDonald's, to be honest with you. I don't know if anybody McDonald's owner or whatever, so, you know, don't know offense. But, you know, I don't even like it, so I won't even make my kids eat that stuff, you know, and they think that we travel by bus everywhere, and that's crazy. Like, when we played UTEP, you think we're going to bus it to UTEP? You know what I mean? Like, you know, like, but people think that. They think that we're taking 18-hour bus rides places and things like that. And that's not even close to being, at least at Norfolk State, is not close to being like that. And I think that just like with everything, there's different levels of PWI schools, you know, because your Kentuckys are going to have more than your William and Mary's or something like that or whatever. You know, I think there's different levels of HBCUs too. You know, like we got a lot more going on than maybe some of the other HBCUs, but for some reason we all get thrown in the same pot. So they'll hear one horror story over there and they think that all HBCUs are like that. And there's different levels to the HBCU as well too. So, you know, I think that we're like on one of the higher levels, which is now comparable to a lot of PWI schools.
Right. No, that's a great point. I love everything you said. I would pick your brain, Coach, in two-part question. One is, what is the misconceptions that you would like to clear the air on for your particular school? One, and then, just what is, you kind of talked about it, like kind of going through the check marks, right? Like, okay, what's next? You thought this, and I'm sure a little bit of that gets a little exhausting. Always dispel all these myths and all these different things. So I guess if you had a streamlined recruiting approach, like, have you evolved that over time? Because obviously you're winning championships, you're going to the tournament, you're advancing in the tournament. So you figured out how to maximize the situation. And I know you want to add to it, but I'm just curious, what are some of the myths that you like to be able to dispel about your particular institution? And it may be the levels of HBCU, there may be more to that. And then secondly, what have you figured out how to get the niche for recruiting? Like, how have you figured out how to get those check marks off of people? And is it an evaluation process? You go to a certain kid and you know not to recruit this type of kid, or what is it that you found that success in? Because you've done a tremendous job.
I mean, I think just the myths that we try to dispel, or the myths that I just kind of talked about a little bit, that, you know, like, you know, Norfolk State, you know, our arena, we hold 6,000. Yeah, we don't hold 16,000, but we hold 6,000. Like our scoreboard costs $1.6 million. Like we have, like, you know, it's like HD crystal clear, you know, digital scoreboard. It's not like a high school scoreboard with like the numbers still just going up and down, like, you know, which some HBCUs have, honestly. You know, and we have all chair backs. You know, it's not like you're in bleachers. You know, there's all types of things like that, and that we want to clear up. And of course, like I said, travel and the gear and, you know, things like that are just misconceptions of, you know, at Norfolk State we don't have that issue. As far as recruiting, you know, I mean, I try to identify the best possible player, you know, to be honest with you. Am I going to waste my time recruiting a kid that has all Power 5 Probably not. Even in this climate that people are like, like I said about the wave of HBCUs and stuff like that, I still know what time, what it is. People, you're not going to choose me over Kentucky.
Right.
But do I think you could choose me over Townsend or something like that? Yeah. Do I think that can happen? Do I? And I'm just throwing out random schools, so it's not like schools. But it's like, can you choose me over those schools? Yes, because if you line us up basketball for basketball and honestly amenity for amenity, you might find that Norfolk State has a lot more checks than you think they have. So it's like stuff like that. I mean, and honestly, even in recruiting, what we'll do is we'll say, okay, we know these kids' lists, most of the time, and we'll put up just win totals, championships on like a spreadsheet. And like, so if it's us, school A, school B, school C, school D, we'll put up the last 5 years. Like, we won't put up the last 2 years because sometimes people have a good year and things like that. So we want to show you the longevity,
show consistency, right?
Yeah. So we'll give you the last 5 years of win-loss record, conference overall, what has been done in postseason, championships, things like that. And we'll give it to the kid. And sometimes the kids are mind blown because they just automatically assume that school A over there was just so much better than, see it right in front of their face in black and white. And they're blown away like, wow, we had no idea it was like this, And a lot of times, even like, I know, go back to what Cam said earlier, when they flashed the graphic during the Gonzaga game, and I don't know if any of you guys remember it, if you watched, the Gonzaga game, it was at the beginning, so you might have turned off the Gonzaga game late. So in the beginning of the game was a good game. But they flashed top 5 win percentages.
Yeah, I saw that.
I saw that in the country, and I was number 5. Mark Few was number 1. That's where they showed it. Like millions of people didn't even realize like that it was even like that close, like that, And granted, Mark Few, I mean, he's won 91% of his games in the West Coast Conference. I mean, like you're never going to catch him, stuff.
Right.
But
it was a conference game. Sorry to interrupt. It was a conference graphic about your success in conference, right, Coach?
Yeah, in conference with coaches with I think 5 seasons or more, 100 games or more, something like that. I think it was 5 seasons or more, and we were at 74.2%, which is like high as all get out, and that just shows you what you could do against light competition, because it's like just like you said, you was at UTEP, like okay. That's Conference USA versus Conference USA. So you got to be able to do what you got to do in your conference. We're in the MEAC, hey, that's where we're at. So we got to be able to dominate where you're at, So it's like that graphic kind of I think opened a lot of people's eyes. I think that actually opened a lot of other schools' eyes because then my agent told me he got a lot of hits, and stuff like that about, potential openings and things like that. Because sometimes until you really see it right in front of your face, you just have this bad perception about what's really going on.
Right. Awesome. Appreciate you sharing that, Coach.
Hey, so Coach, talk about a HBCU rivalry, like you talked about with the dancers, the cheerleaders, the band there, the gym going crazy. Talk about that environment.
People look at like Duke, Carolina, things like that, and those are great rivalries. And then, of course, Duke, Carolina, when you play in the Dean Dome, you got 20,000 people, screaming at you, and we don't have that at Norfolk State. Like I said, we only hold 6,000. But Hampton Norfolk State game non-pandemic year is insane. Like the people get so into the game. I mean, it's like really like people almost, and it's crazy to me as a coach because it's like you could be 30-0, and if you lose that Hampton game, nobody want to talk to you, man. They're like, yo, you're trash.
Right.
But you could be 0-30, and then
you win that game, you're a hero.
Yeah, people are like, oh my God, you're the greatest thing ever. But it's like, yo, you really suck, and stuff. But because you won that game, it's like, it's like people really take these rivalries to the chest, man. Like, I mean, I know A&T and Central have a great rivalry. They have a great one too. That I know it gets out of control. So the rivalries that you have, like the battle of the bands going on, the cheerleaders, and I mean, it's just like we make sure that we bring our recruits for those games. It's like
have to.
Those games are crazy, man. So HBCU rivalry is definitely different. There's a lot of rivalries across the country, but just the energy that people put into these rivalries is just like totally, I think, different.
Yeah, because I remember when I was at Tuskegee, man. When I played the rivalry with us was Alabama A&M.
Okay. And
like we had to get a bus escort from the hotel, which was like 10 miles down the road, just to get to the gym because like people out there. So they had like 5,000 people. sitting outside, banging on the windows, trying to get in the gym, and it was already like a packed house. So somebody messed around and opened the door, and people just started like a floodgate went in there. So they had to like kick everybody back out of the gym, try and get people back in. It was crazy, man. So like the craziest environment is like an HBCU rivalry, like Coach said, like the band's playing, like coaches yelling, like you got to win this game. Like you said, you're trash if you don't. You're the greatest thing since sliced bread if you do.
Mm-hmm.
And you just get caught up in that, man. It's crazy.
Nah, it's crazy. Definitely.
Yeah, I got a couple HBCU experience. We play. So I'm a Texas guy. I'm from Texas, Coach, and I don't live in Texas now, but that's where I grew up and spent most of my years. And Prairie View and Texas Southern is probably the two I have the most familiarity with. Not only going to the football games and the Grambling, the classics and all that, but yeah, I definitely experienced it playing against TSU and PV. So I got a good feel of it. And I coached in junior college at a school called Southwestern Christian in Terrell, Texas, and it's an HBCU JUCO. And I mean, that's probably the hardest place to play of all the places in the league. Not necessarily always the best team, but it's the hardest place to get a road win. Mm-hmm. So same kind of environment, same kind of thing. I'm curious, Coach, before we let you go, the inside of your program, how you've built it to be championships, win championships. What is it? You talked about one thing you said, one of many things you said that I love. You talked about you wanted to be seen as another really good mid-major program. You know what I mean? You're not looking at it as, yes, we're in this league, but we are a really good mid-major program. So if you're considering other mid-major programs, then you should consider us because we have all these things. And it's obvious with your recruitment that you're very thorough. If you can check boxes off and get people to think one thing, or they were going in thinking one thing and now they think something else because they got educated, that means you're thorough in your process. And I've coached against you, so I know there's a certain level of detail that you're incorporating with your culture. If you don't mind, talk about the Norfolk culture, if you will, and how you've built it, because it's not easy. I don't know if you've coached at HBCU before or what your background is before this, to be honest. I just know as long as you've been there, y'all been winning at a high level, like that graphic said. Yeah. So talk a little about your culture specifically, because I think it should be said on this, because I think it's really, really elite, obviously, just with that graphic that they talked about and they put up. So talk about your culture, how you built it, what's some of if you could give us two things that makes it unique to have the elite level of success you had. Well,
it's like what you said, man. It's like, it's funny that we played Gonzaga in the tournament, which I guess the game wasn't funny, but it was just that we played Gonzaga because what we say in our recruiting is that Gonzaga, even though people consider Gonzaga a mid-major, but I can't consider any place that the coach makes $3 million a mid-major, program. They're a high major program, but yet they play in the West Coast Conference. And unless you're a real basketball buff, you can't name a lot of teams in the West Coast Conference, honestly. And we feel the same way about the MEAC, that we play in the MEAC, but we're going to be one of the top teams in the MEAC. No matter, we don't care what anybody else does or anybody else, what perception is, but we're going to be one of the best teams. We're going to be like the Gonzaga, for the MEAC, and that's what we're trying to talk about. But then as far as culture, I mean, I think that we have strong pillars of our culture, and I always say that if you bend those pillars, if you bend culture, then you started a new culture. If you bend it, so we don't ever bend our culture, for anything, because we don't want to start a new culture, because the culture we have right now is successful. And the pillars of our culture is something that we call dialed in. So our pillars is dialed, and dial is an acronym, and it's like D is for intensity. I mean, D is for discipline, which I think you got to have on and off the court. I is for intensity, which if you don't have any intensity, if you're not playing hard, then you're not going to win any basketball games. A is for accountability. You got to be accountable for yourself, your actions, but also your teammates and your brother's actions. L is for leadership. Guys, even though you're not a captain, you can always be a leader no matter what. There's only going to be so many captains, but that doesn't mean you can't be a leader in whatever role you're trying to do. E is for excitement, because, I mean, it's only 357 Division I schools now, I think, with a couple of new additions this year. You're only one of, 4,000, 4,500 players, Division I players in the world. You should be excited every time you come to practice. Every time you play, you need some excitement. And D is for dedication. You got to be dedicated to your craft. If you're not going to be dedicated, then we're not going to be successful at anything. So if you can do all those things, we say that you're dialed in, and we're going to hold you to those those acronyms, those letters every single day. Like, we're going to have discipline in practice. We're going to be intense. You know, you're going to have accountability. Our leader's going to lead. You know, you're going to be excited. You know, quiet practices are losing practices. So you better be excited and have energy to be here. And you're going to be dedicated to what we're going to do. If you can't be dialed in, then you can't be with us, because we're not going to break that culture to start a new culture for you. So that's like what we do, and it's been successful. And we preach competitiveness and competitive nature, because I think sometimes that's overlooked. You know, a lot of times people just look at talent, but sometimes talent, when you don't have no competitive nature, you're not going to do anything with that talent. So we compete at everything. We compete for those 10 sneakers. We compete for those T-shirts. We compete for everything. You know, it's like nothing is given, everything is earned. And so we have that competitive nature just flowing throughout our program. Like I said, all the way down to like the gear that you receive. Yeah, you're going to receive a lot of gear, but if you're not coming in first in these sprints, or if your team is losing these shell drills, you're not getting anything. So, you know, it just breeds competitive nature. So when we step on the floor, like, we believe we can win. Like after we lost to Gonzaga and we lost by 40, you know, let's be honest, people were mad in that locker room. You know, like, they were mad that it wasn't about like, oh, we played the #1 team in the nation, that we should lose by 40. People are like, we should have beat them. That's like the competitive nature, almost to a fault that, you know, that happens, that, you know, we should have beat them. You know, like, that's how people are feeling. Like, so like, you almost got to pep the kids back up and let them understand, like, hey, we had a great season. We accomplished X, Y, and Z. You know, there's nothing to hold the head about. Gonzaga, no one has beaten Gonzaga yet. You know, so let's just walk out of here with our heads high. But some kids were walking out of here like we just had an 0-18 season or something like that. You know, because of we have built the competitive nature in them that we know we didn't compete the right way against Gonzaga.
Yeah, I seen it firsthand, Coach. I salute you. I applaud you. That's not just talk. I've seen it firsthand, and obviously I've seen it on television like we all have with the tournament, but I saw it firsthand in a situation where, like you said, you were down a guy. This guy's over here on the road, supposed to be the team that if you had 4 seeds in that tournament or whatever it may be, you guys were supposed to be the last seed, you know, because you're playing the home team. And the way that they approached it from the tip, you know, was not just to win, or I hope we win. It's like we came here to dominate and let people know what we're about. So I know that you've instilled that in them, and you and your staff, so salute you on that. My last question, and we're having so much fun with you, Coach. We're going a little bit overtime. I hope you don't mind.
That's no good, man.
My last question before I pass the Cam to close it is just, what is your favorite life lesson maybe that you like to instill in your guys? Because obviously the competitive nature and the things you talk about being dialed in, you can tell that's obvious, right? You can also tell your guys are disciplined, right? And they aren't. I think that's another misconception, is that with HBCUs, it's just like you just roll the balls out. Like, you don't really run offense. You're just hooping. You're just playing at the rec. It's like, no, these are real high level coaches, you know, and I know some of the other coaches in your league I've gotten to know over the time too. And so it is high level coaching going on, not just high level players. So I'm curious, off the court, I don't know their team as well, but you can tell how they carry themselves, again, being around them for that tournament for two days in a row, and there's an event the night before, and the way they carry themselves is the right way, in a professional way, like champions. So what's one of your favorite things off the court that you like to instill in your guys before I pass the Cam?
That's a good question, man. You know, I would have to. Well, you kind of caught me. Usually I'm not stumped for words, but I just got to think about like exactly, you know, what it is. I mean, we try to preach, you know, discipline a lot, honestly. You know, because of some of the things that you did say. You know, people think HBCUs are supposed to be like he said, park ballers. You know, they think that when they see an HBCU team, they're supposed to look raggedy, you know, and look like a team from the hood. Let's be honest, you know, and stuff like that. So, you know, when we travel, we make sure everybody got the same thing on. You know, we got, you know, everybody is straight. You know, when, like you said, we had the event, you know, the hypnotist event, you know, the night before. That was a really cool event. But it was like, we're making sure that, you know, we're carrying ourselves the right way. Like, we're not going to be loud and obnoxious, because we're not going to give you a reason to think, you know, what you think that we're supposed to look like, you know. So, and then on the court, you know, we're going to run sets. We're going to run offense. We're going to run defense and be disciplined and things like that. So it doesn't look like we just play ISO ball, you know, which people think that we're going to do. But I just try to tell them, man, you know, just with life lessons, honestly, and this has nothing to do with this newfound love for HBCUs, but just, you know, as an African-American man, you know, you're already the underdog. So it's like you got to figure out a way to get out the hole and figure out a way to be successful. So if they're going to put us in this pigeonhole as HBCU basketball or whatever, don't let that stop you. Don't let that, like we're going to do everything that everybody else do. And, and we're going to practice the way everybody else practice. We're going to do everything that everybody else, do to get the same results that everybody else get, So, like we're just not happy about, and some teams are like, we're just not happy. We're to the point that we're not happy about if we play a 16-game MEAC schedule and we go 14-2 in MEAC, but then we're 0-15 out of conference. That like, oh, it was a good year. Like,
right.
With that, I'm not with that. I tell you that straight up. So we're gonna go out here. We're gonna get some non-conference wins. Whether we get all of them, hey, to be determined. But we're not gonna go out here and like these guarantee games and just go get a check and it's cool. Like even the UTEP game, we got a check, but it wasn't. No, we're gonna get the win too. And just like we've played Richmond and we played George Mason this year. We played. A whole bunch of schools that we've got the check and the win for because we're just not conceding. I told my guys, and maybe I'm crazy, but I told them when we got to Indianapolis, I said, look, check this out, man. We're here to win a national championship, just like everybody else. Everybody here is here in a national tournament. We want to win a national championship. So Appalachian State is the first game. So we got to go out there. If we want to get to the next game, we got to beat them. And then Gonzaga was the next game. Unfortunately, we didn't beat them, but we didn't have the mindset going into that game, or at least, we didn't, the whole program didn't, that we were going to just concede to Gonzaga. We said, hey, we're 68 teams is buying for one trophy, and we want to be holding that one trophy. And I think sometimes, honestly, unfortunately, some HBCU programs, not all, but some don't think the same way. They just think like, because you'll even hear from some of the fans, they'll say, well, hey, if you lose all your non-conference games, the conference is what matters. You'll be okay and stuff like that. And yeah, in theory, because you have to win the conference in order to get to the NCAA tournament or the NIT or whatever it might be. But I don't want my record to be 50 games under 500. I don't get that part of the. And
not only that, Coach, just to jump in, the games in the non-conference helps you win in the conference. You know what I mean?
So it's not like we're just going out there to just like, oh, it's cool to go lose by 20 to UCLA and 30 to Mississippi State. Nah, that's not cool with me. So, and also for us, there's a consequence for losing. Like whatever we lose by, if we lose by 20, we do 20 sprints the next day. Like we don't do just you lose and it's cool. Nah, it's not cool to lose. So there's a consequence behind losing. So it once again that feeds in the competitive nature that they're like, we ain't losing because we ain't coming back here to do, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Only game that we obviously didn't do any sprints behind was Gonzaga because that was the last game of the season. And we didn't have any more practices. But if that was a midseason game, we'd have came back and did 40 sprints. No, because we're not just happy about losing like that.
Absolutely. I love it. Appreciate that, Coach.
No problem.
Yeah, good deal. Hey, Coach, you got any closing words for anybody out here listening to this HBCU Spotlight?
Just, I guess just stuff that we talked about, just kind of just summing it up that, HBCUs, you could go live out whatever dream you want to live out. Whether it's if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, you can go to HBCU. If you want to be a businessman, you can go to HBCU. If you want to go to NBA, you can go to HBCU. I tell people all the time, there's a lot of people that play at Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke, Kansas on the end of the bench that don't go to NBA either. So, you if you come to HBCU, you got your Kyle O'Quinns, you got your Robert Covingtons, you got your Bob Dandridges from back in the day who were 4-time All-Star and things like that, that if you're good enough, you're going to be able to make it. Because like I said, the 13th man on Kentucky doesn't go to NBA either. So it's not all about that. It's about just trying to get the right fit, making it happen, and you can be anything you want going to a HBCU.
I love it, Coach. I love it. Coach, if you don't mind, I know Cam got the access. I still got to earn my access. But if you don't mind, I'm going to start at least getting your phone number so I can get on the text chain and say what up to you as well. And,
I mean, this little private chat works, right? I'll put it in this private chat, right?
Yeah. You could do that. I appreciate that. Or I can get it from Cam. But no, much respect, Coach. I think it's important for us to support each other. That's one thing. I was inspired by Cam and his HBCU roundtable that he hosted in the summer. And then we just got to talking, two brothers and embrace us, wanting to make sure we're doing a good job of celebrating some of the unsung heroes in this thing, man. And HBCUs don't get a lot of spotlight. And like you said, and Cam said earlier, the energy's kind of dying off, and we just want to keep it consistent and find a way to still tell these stories, still have it in the spotlight and still find a way to clip the replays, put it out, the content, so it can keep circulating. People can keep understanding what HBCU life is all about from the great side of it. You know what I mean? Because that's not highlighted enough. So we appreciate it so much for you coming on, man, and much respect.
Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you, Coach.
All right, no problem. Take it easy,
All right, man. Later.
Cam, another great one, man. It's like, what is that, like 3 in a row now, man? We on fire almost.
Yeah. I think the next show we gotta spotlight 2 of our HBCU women coaches. I think we need to get 2.
We did that the first one, so we get two next time. I think that's a great idea.
Yep. I think we'll do that for the women, man. So we'll put our heads together, and ladies coaches, be ready. We're gonna be calling on you.
Yeah, we're coming for you. Any closing words you got for them? I think I will say this. I think it's awesome that one thing to highlight: 2 HBCUs winning in the NCAA tournament. Texas Southern won a first-round game. Norfolk won a first-round game. And if I'm not mistaken, he said 2 units, but if I'm not mistaken, they overall raised $1.8 million for their respective conferences. So when you win in the NCAA tournament, you get money for that. And so the fact that they were able to not only get in the tournament but win and help raise some more money for HBCU, I just want to salute both those programs, both Texas Southern and Norfolk State, for the work that they did.
Yeah, definitely. And also, shout out to all these HBCUs that are playing football right now. Maybe try and get a football coach or 2 on here too as well, and just talk about their story and everything like that. But I mean, my biggest thing is, like we said, it's dying down a little bit, but don't let it. We're in control of our own destiny. And the last thing I would like to say is, hey, be a blessing to somebody else who you know can't repay you. Be a blessing to them, man. And let's do more things to be selfless in this world. That's my biggest thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, go be great, be grateful, and make somebody else better. We out. We'll see you guys here soon.